Hey, and welcome back to another video. This is the first episode of the story where there are so many things that we as humans are unaware of, or lack an understanding. The bijou are one of those things. Follow the journey of Naruto Uzumaki as he befriends the yokai that was sealed inside of him and she helps him grow stronger. Please support by liking and subscribing. Let's start the show. Sitting beside his window and looking out at the people walking by on the street, one Naruto Uzumaki wasn't sure whether to sigh or to cry. Naruto was a young boy of 5 years old, he had blonde hair, and not the usual kind either. His was an odd golden blonde color that seemed to literally shine like the sun, and startling blue eyes. However, the most prominent feature on his face were the 6 whisker marks, 3 on each side, running horizontally across his cheeks. The blonde-haired child was sitting alone in his apartment, on his bed with his knees drawn up to his chest doing the same thing he did every day. Which was essentially wondering why he was alone, why no one liked him and why all the villagers glared at him with such a fierce hatred it would make demons flinch in fear. Unfortunately, he had never been able to figure it out, and had learned long ago that trying to would only give him a headache. Or make him even more depressed, whichever came first. He stared out of the window to his apartment and watched as people walked along the street below. Adults were walking, carrying their kids, holding hands with their significant others. Children were running through the street, playing tag or some other kind of game. Naruto often wished he could do those things, that he could have someone carry and hold him, that he could play games with the other kids, that he could be loved. But he knew it was nothing more than a dream. He knew what he would get if he went outside. There was only one person in the entire village who treated him with kindness. Just then someone knocked at the door and a smile split little Naruto's face as he ran to the door and swung it open. "Ajisen," he shouted his greeting to the old man who stood in his entryway. Hiruzen Sarutobi was an aging man in his mid to late 60s. He had graying hair and a wrinkled yet kind-looking face, which helped create his grandfatherly aura. He was wearing a long white robe with red lining that covered him from head to toe, and a large white hat with the kanji for fire on the front. "Hello Naruto-kun," Sarutobi chuckled at the boy's enthusiastic greeting. He bent down and ruffled the boy's hair, getting a playful scowl from the young blonde. Despite the boy trying to knock the hand off of his head, he actually enjoyed the small gesture of affection due to the fact that he rarely ever got any. Something that Sarutobi was all too aware of. "I hear someone has a birthday today." "You remembered," Naruto smiled brightly at the one person who never treated him like some kind of freak. Sarutobi was the only person who ever treated him kindly, coming to visit him when he had been in the orphanage, giving him this apartment after he had been found getting beaten by several drunk villagers. He was the only person who didn't hate Naruto. "Of course I remembered," Sarutobi said with a smile, "how could I forget? You've been yelling about it for a week now." Naruto blushed before his good mood faded a little. "No one else even bothers to figure out when my birthday is." Sarutobi winced at the desperation in the blonde's voice. In an effort to get rid of the boy's frown he stood up and held out his hand. "Why don't we go out and spend some time in the village to celebrate your birthday? There's a festival going on today that I think you would enjoy." Naruto frowned as his eyes clouded over. "I don't know if I want to." "Why not?" Sarutobi asked with a frown of his own. "You enjoyed the last time we went out, didn't you?" Truth was Naruto didn't. The last time they went out he was glared at. But he didn't want his Ajisen to worry, so he quickly shoved his own insecurities aside. "You're right. Let's go." Naruto grabbed the hand and began dragging an amused Sarutobi behind him. Story of the 10-tailed wolf. Sarutobi frowned as he noticed the large scowl on the face of the ice cream vendor he and Naruto had just gotten ice cream from. Not that it was all that hard to notice, the man wasn't even attempting to hide it from the Hokage. Sighing, he looked at Naruto who was happily licking away at the large, triple scoop, chocolate fudge sundae he had gotten. At least the boy was too busy to notice the man's glare, or so he thought. "Come on Naruto-kun," Sarutobi said, "why don't we try some of the games here? Okay. Naruto said before they began to move into the crowd. Everywhere they went it was the same reaction. People would give Sarutobi a deferential bow, smile at him, right before they noticed the little blonde he was with. Then they would scowl, their eyes would glare, showing a hatred and maliciousness that shocked and depressed the aging man to his core. He tried not to let that bother him as Naruto led him around. They played several games, scooping up goldfish, a throwing game where if you knocked 3 bottles down you'd earn a prize, and several others. Many of the vendors made their displeasure at having the blonde inside their established booths clear, but with Sarutobi there they were all smart enough not to try anything. However, not all people were being as tolerant with Naruto's presence. Story of the 10-tailed wolf. Hey Takashi, take a look at that damn demon. Walking around like he owns the place. I know what you mean. And the way our Hokage gives him such attention and preferential treatment, it makes me sick. Makes you wonder, what if the Kyuubi has the Hokage under some kind of spell? Do you think it's possible? I mean, he may look old, but he is the strongest ninja in the village. So was the Yondaime. Look at what the Kyuubi did to him. You're right. But what do we do? Heh, some friends of mine are getting together tonight, to mourn the passing of their loved ones. At least that's what everyone thinks is going to happen. Instead, we plan on taking that demon out once and for all. We won't let him walk around like he owns the place anymore. But wouldn't the Hokage notice when he goes missing? You know how the old man is about the Kyuubi. Don't worry about it, my friend is on the council, and when I informed him of what we were gonna do, he said that he would convince the other members to put the old man in a council meeting. With him out of the way there will be no one to stop us. Those ninja who aren't getting drunk are patrolling the festival. No one will even be near the demon's apartment. So, you in? Sounds like a plan. I'm in. Story of the 10-tailed wolf. It was late at night when Naruto awoke to the sound of his door being busted in and his windows being broken. Jumping out of bed, the blonde had just enough time to stand up before the door to his bedroom was busted down. 2 men were standing in the doorway, but only for a second before they stalked into the room, towards Naruto, whose eyes had gone wide. What do you people want? Naruto asked as he backed away from them. He knew what they wanted, of course. This wasn't the first time this had happened. It had happened a few times before when he was living on the street, but he had thought he would be safe now that he had an apartment. Shut up, demon. You don't get to ask questions, one of the men shouted, spittle flying out of his mouth. From the smell and the slight way he was swaying, the man was drunk. Not that Naruto knew or cared. Said blonde tried to get away only for both men to lunge and grab him. Naruto started kicking and screaming, trying to escape or at least alert someone who might help him. It was too bad Sarutobi had so much faith in his people to do the right thing, even after all that had happened. Otherwise, he may have given Naruto an ANBU guard to protect him. Alas, they were all being deployed elsewhere at the moment, ensuring that nothing happened during the festival. The men dragged Naruto out of his apartment, where about a dozen men were waiting. The moment the 2 came out, a cheer went up, and thus began Naruto's torture. Story of the 10-tailed wolf. Naruto screamed and tears came to his eyes as his hands were nailed to a wood fence with a kunai. His feet were dangling about 4 inches off the ground and his hands were above his head. Blood was beginning to pour out of the wounds on his palms, down his arm, chest and back. Why are you doing this? Asked Naruto through his grit teeth as tears stained his cheeks. Why? Why? Shouted one of the men, because you killed our loved ones, that's why. But I didn't, cried Naruto. What could he say to make these people understand? Like hell you didn't, shouted another man. He pushed the one who shoved a kunai through Naruto's hands out of the way and smashed a fist into the blonde's stomach. Naruto gasped in pain and began to cough as all of the air was knocked from his lungs. That childlike visage you hold won't fool us, demon. We know all kitsune are tricksters. Well, guess what? This time the trick's on you. The mob soon began to take Turns beating on the blonde. For the moment the only weapons used were fists and feet. They hit his face, his stomach, his ribs, one even kicked him in the crotch, claiming that demons shouldn't have children or some other tripe. All throughout it Naruto could do nothing more than cry out or gasp depending on how and where he was hit. Then, they brought out weapons. The first thing they used was a broken bottle. The village who stabbed him with it did so on his left bicep, making blood begin to gush down onto his head. Another came up, this one with a kunai he somehow managed to get. He took it to the little blonde's face and began to carve out his whisker marks, not just opening them enough to pour out blood, but carving all the way through the flesh until the muscles of his jaw could be seen. Blood poured down his cheeks, running along his chin in a thick stream that looked like a miniature waterfall. The young boy's screams intensified, but that just seemed to goad the villagers on more. The number of wounds they inflicted on him were both numerous and horrifying. One man had used a pair of pliers and tore off Naruto's toenails, one by one. Another had taken a hot branding iron normally used for cattle and scalded his chest, face and stomach. When the man was finished the whiskered blonde was suffering from multiple third-degree burns. "Please." Naruto gasped, "No more. 'Twill be good. I'll do whatever you want. Just please, you can't give us what we want," the dozen-strong mob roared. "You can't give back all the people you killed." They continued their torture. One man busted Naruto's kneecaps with a mallet. Another had done the same to his feet. However, it was the last attack that hurt worst. A man came in with a pitchfork, and stabbed it right in his stomach. More specifically, he was stabbed right where the seal was located. Gaha hai. Naruto's wails continued. If it weren't for the fact that the festival that celebrated the Yondame's sacrifice was still going on, and the council had managed to drag the Hokage into a meeting, they may have gotten caught. Had the villagers not been so drunk they may have noticed the seal appear when Naruto's blood was smeared across it. As it was, the Hokage was not around to protect the demon, and the spot they had chosen to rid themselves of Konoha's stain was completely deserted of all life. As far as they were concerned, they had all the time in the world. The tortures seemed to continue until Naruto was nothing more than a lump of beaten and bloody flesh, barely even recognizable as a human. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was a hammer that smashed into his face and sent him into oblivion. Had the villagers been more observant they may have spotted the second seal on top of the first one, a one-time defensive mechanism installed as a security device in case something ever damaged the main seal. As it was they didn't, and they would soon pay the price. The villagers sent up a cheer, believing that the Kyuubi was finally dead. However, as this cheer went up a red energy burst from the lump of raw flesh. It happened too fast for the villagers to even notice. Red chakra burst forth from the blonde and formed 9 tails that then shot out, piercing each and every one of them. They didn't even get a chance to scream as it burned their flesh, then their muscles and organs and finally, their bones. Soon the villagers were nothing more than dust that scattered on the wind. Sometime during the night Naruto would be found by an ANBU officer who was doing a routine sweep of the village after most of the people had gone home. The red energy would no longer be visible or noticeable and the only sign of injury the blonde would be several broken bones, the puncture wounds in his hands from the kunai, and a severe concussion. Story of the 10-tailed wolf. Naruto's eyes opened as he found himself in what looked like a sewer. At least he thought it was a sewer. Gray, drab walls with cracks running along there and there were pipes that glowed with a blue energy running every which way along the walls. Sitting up, Naruto realized he was in knee-deep water, yet despite this, he saw that his clothes and body were still completely dry. Getting up Naruto looked around and tried to figure out where he was. It didn't look like any of the sewers he had ever seen before, and he had been in every sewer in Konoha during his attempts to escape from the drunken civilians that would occasionally chase after him. The young blonde's eyes found a pipe running along the ceiling that was different than the others, where all the pipes glowed blue this one did not. Rather it had a deep reddish glow, it was also the only one that was leading in a direction he could go. He decided to follow it. Eventually Naruto was forced to stop as he ended up staring at a large cage. It had odd black symbols that glowed with a purple energy along the bars. In the center of the cage was a piece of paper with some odd symbol he had never seen, but looked kind of like the stuff that the old man in the pointy hat would draw. He wondered if the old man had been down here and drew it. "Hello." Naruto called out, hoping for an answer. For a second there was silence. Then Naruto heard it, a sound he had grown familiar with as it had been one he had made countless times. Someone was crying. Following the sound, Naruto easily moved between the bars as he continued on towards the source. When he got to it he was surprised. In front of him was a girl. She looked to be about 10 years older than he was. With long red hair that reached down to her mid-back and a pair of bangs that framed a beautiful, aristocratic face, with high cheekbones, luscious red lip, and a small nose. Her eyes were currently closed so he could not see the color, but she had rather long lashes that added to her beautiful features. She was wearing a red kimono that hid her rather beautiful figure, long, toned legs, wide hips with a small, firm, shapely rear that fit her 5'8" height perfectly and tapered into a lithe waist, before moving into a bust that fit her just as perfectly as everything else about her body did. All in all, the woman was too beautiful to be human, not that the little blonde had any real concept of beauty. 9 fox tails laid limply at her side, and 2 fox ears were flattened against her head. Currently she was curled up in the fetal position as tears rained down her face. For a moment Naruto was unsure what to do. He had learned long ago that he could not trust anyone except the old man with the funny hat. She could easily be trying to trick him into coming closer. However, he also wanted to comfort the strange, pretty girl. Having cried many times himself, he knew she must be hurting and he could not stand to see others cry. He tentatively moved up to her side and knelt down. She hadn't seemed to notice him yet as her eyes were closed. "Ano, are you okay, miss?" he asked in a small, timid voice. The young woman's eyes snapped open. Naruto saw that they were blood red, with a black slits running down the middle. They were some of the oddest eyes he had ever seen, and he had seen everything from white pupilless eyes that those blind people had, to those creepy red eyes with the odd-looking dots in them. Even though these eyes were also red, they didn't scare him like the other red eyes did. The young woman gasped when she saw a pair of bright blue eyes in front of her and nearly fell backwards, or she would have had she been in an upright position. She had not expected to meet her container so soon, or ever if she were honest with herself. In fact, thanks to the seal that held her in place and had been draining her power, she had not even expected to wake up. Were it not for the seal that had been draining her power breaking, she likely would have never woken up. For the past 5 years she had only been partially aware of everything going on around her, enough to know that she had been sealed and have a general sense of time, but no more than that. Then not but 10 seconds ago she had awoken, only to be inundated with several images. Images of she was seeing through the boy's eye, images of him being tortured, by people accusing him of being her, of killing others, of hateful eyes and painful screams. The young blonde had been tortured so badly that his mind had been forced to bury itself deep enough within his subconscious to reach this place. The mere fact that the reason he was here because of her caused her even more tears to rain from her eyes. Out of some kind of instinct that she didn't know she had, the beautiful red head grabbed Naruto, pulling his body to her in a hug as she buried her face in his hair. For a second Naruto's eyes widened and his entire body stiffened like a board as the young woman hugged him. Having never had a hug in his life except the occasional small one from the old man, he was unused to being so close, except when people were beating him. He was about to start struggling when the young woman spoke. "I'm sorry." Despite her voice cracking, it was still extremely and beautiful and soft-sounding alto pitch. "I'm so sorry," she continued. This is all my fault." Naruto's body began to relax as her voice reached his ears, the soothing and melodious sound comforting him in ways he had not felt before. He frowned as he tried to understand what was going on. Unable to think of anything, he decided to simply ask the girl who was now hugging, "Ano, why are you apologizing to me?" Those people are hurting you because of me, the young woman replied to his question. Because I was sealed inside of you, they feel that by hurting or killing you it will hurt or kill me. This is all my fault. She began to shake as her tears spilled out harder. However, her body stiffened with surprise when a pair of small arms latched onto her waist. Naruto really had no clue what was going on, but this girl was apologizing to him for something that other people were doing. That simply wasn't right. You don't need to apologize, Naruto said as he moved his head up to look at her. You've never tried to hurt me or done anything mean to me. I don't see why you're saying sorry for something other people have done. The red-haired girl looked at the boy in shock. All of this was her fault. Had she been more prepared she would not have been caught off guard and forced to attack Konoha. She would never have been sealed in this boy and he would have never lost his family. She deserved nothing more than to receive this boy's hatred and the beatings he had taken from the villagers because of her. Yet this boy, this little, 5-year-old boy was telling her she had nothing to apologize for. Her grip tightened as she laid her head on his, whispering thank you over and over again to the little boy who was still confused. After a while Naruto decided it would probably be best if he knew what was going on. Ano, if you don't mind my asking, miss. Where are we exactly? And who are you? The woman blinked. I'm sorry Kit, I forgot you would have questions for me. Right now we are in your mind. She made a sweeping gesture to the area around her. This place is called your mindscape. Think of it as a place inside of you that you can go to when you want to or are in trouble. Naruto only understood half of that. This place was some kind of safe haven that he could go to, but he really didn't understand what she meant by his mind. Could people go into their minds? Despite his confusion he nodded anyway, figuring he would learn what she meant eventually. The young woman continued, as for my name, it's Akane, however you may know me better by my title of Kyubi no Yoko. Naruto thought for a moment. He had heard the old man tell him about the Kyubi before he was sure of it. He blinked as he recalled the information. I thought the Kyubi was an evil demon that the Yondaime killed. There's no way you can be a demon. I am Kit, Kyubi said sadly, however I am not evil. I was tricked into attacking your village. It was part of the truth at least, but the boy was not yet ready to hear of the dangers he may face since she was sealed in him. As for the Yondaime, while he did defeat me, in a sense he could not kill me. Demons of my caliber cannot be killed by mortals, so he did the next best thing by sealing me into a newborn baby. Sealed? Asked Naruto, not really understanding what that means. Yes, I am inside of you, Akane said. She wondered how best to describe the art of sealing, or at least how it pertained to their situation to a 5-year-old. She shook her head. There was nothing she could really say that would make sense to the boy. All you need to know for now, is that I am inside of you. Naruto tried to comprehend what she was saying. So you're sealed inside of me? Akane nodded, and the little blonde tried to grasp what that meant. If she was the Kyubi as she was saying, and she was inside of him, then is the reason those villagers hurt me because they think I am you? He asked. That really the only thing he could think of. Why else would they want to hurt him unless they thought he was a demon who was somehow inside of him? The redhead bit her lower lip as she nodded. Well, that's just stupid, Naruto said with a snort. Wah, how can I be you if you're right here, Naruto said, as if that explained everything. And in a very simplistic way it did. Besides you don't act bad, he added as an afterthought. After all, if she were the Kyubi and the Kyubi was supposed to be bad, he didn't think she would be crying and apologizing. Bad people don't do those things. A few tears came to Akane's eyes, but she blinked them away as she reburied her face in Naruto's hair, holding on to him like a lifeline. Naruto didn't resist this time as he was starting to get used to the hug. A part of him couldn't help but enjoy the feeling of warmth she gave off. For a while they stayed like that, before Akane perked up. Say Kit, she said, getting Naruto's attention, do you have any dreams you want to fulfill? Naruto looked at her, tilting his head to the side in a cute fashion. Had Akane not already been pretty much cuddled up to the boy she would have after seeing how cute he looked. A second later a foxy grin spread over his face. Of course I have a dream, I'm gonna be the best Hokage ever. Akane looked at the young kid for a moment. The boy seemed so determined and full of energy when he said that. Like there was some kind of fire raging inside of those blue eyes of his. She smiled at him. How would you like me to help you? Naruto looked at her, his eyes wide as saucers. You would help me? Of course, Akane said, I will help you become Hokage. I will teach you everything I know about being a ninja and will even go one step further, by turning you into a Hanyu. Naruto's face scrunched up in confusion. Hand what? Akane giggled, not hand, Hanyu, I will let you become a half-demon to increase your power. Naruto thought about her offer for a moment. She was telling him he would become a half-demon. Was a half-demon like Akane? Well, if she was a demon, then he supposed that meant he would be half of what she was. In truth the offer intrigued him rather than appalled him. He was already considered a demon by the village, so becoming a real one would not make a difference, at least that was how he perceived it. Ano, will I become like you? He asked. Akane shook her head. Not quite, I am a full demon while you will become a half-demon. That's half-demon and half-human. I will give you all 9 of my tails, since I can regain my power easily enough if I ever get out of this seal. In any event, you will gain all 9 of my tails, which will mix with your human chakra to form a weaker variation of Yuki. Naruto did not quite understand what she meant by tails of power, nor did he know what chakra was, but put it into the learn later section of his mind. Alright, Naruto said, I would like your help in becoming the greatest Hokage ever. Akane giggled at his once again determined look. Very well, kid. Your training will begin soon. But first, you need to wake up. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. Naruto opened his eyes as he woke up in a bed he recognized as the one reserved for him at the hospital. Are you alright, Naruto-kun? Naruto blinked as he turned his head to look at the old man in the funny hat. I'm fine, Ajisen. Did you save me? Naruto asked. I did, the old Hokage replied, not feeling the desire to worry the blonde by telling him he had been found unconscious by one of his ANBU. I am sorry I could not get there sooner. I was in a council meeting. I suspect they did that on purpose so they could try to get rid of him, Sarutobi thought with a frown. If only he had more evidence of their wrongdoing, then he might actually be able to do something. If only they had not been able to monopolize as much power as they have, this would have never happened. Sometimes he cursed the Yondaime for dying. Had he not died, the bastards on the council would never have gained this much power. It was not that they had taken control of his power, but rather, thanks to the Yondaime's death, they had been able to gain enough power and clout over the village that they could cover up their tracks very well. That's okay, Ajisen, it's not your fault. People are bakas, Naruto said. Sarutobi looked at him strangely for a minute at the odd sentence. While the beating had only been severe enough to send him to the hospital a few times, he had never said something like that. Normally it would be marked off as the occasional odd words of a child. But Sarutobi was not the professor for nothing. Could he know of the Kyuubi? Sarutobi shook his head at the absurd thought. There was no way a child could know of that. He was probably just being paranoid. Careful, kid, you can't let him know that you know about me. Naruto blinked in surprise as the feminine voice of Akane rang through his mind. He looked around for a moment curiously. When he didn't see anyone other than the old man, he thought, Akane-kan? Akane flushed a little at the affectionate suffix, having never had someone call her that before. Of course, she had never given her true name to anyone before, so maybe that had something to do with it. She quickly shook the thought off and replied, Yes, it's me, kid. Now don't let the Hokage know about me. If he did, no good could come of it right now. Naruto did not understand but agreed to anyways. He looked up at the old man who seemed to be in his own world. Hey, Ajisen? Naruto asked. Sarutobi snapped out of his stupor. Yes, Naruto-kun. Can I go now? Sarutobi blinked before chuckling. No matter what happened, Naruto always hated hospitals and wanted to get out of them as soon as possible. Of course, your wounds are all healed, so you are free to leave. Naruto grinned as he stood up. getting the clothes laid out for him on as he left. Sarutobi watched the boy leave and closed his eyes. I am so sorry I could not protect you more, Naruto. Kit, come on Kit, it's time to wake up. Naruto groaned as he heard the voice in his mind. It sounded familiar and he really liked how it seemed to soothe him. But right now, he just wanted to sleep. 5 more minutes, Naruto grumbled as he buried his head under his pillow, as if that would somehow keep him from hearing the voice. Within his mind Akane was unsure whether she should snicker at how stupid that particular idea was, squeal, kawaii, because of how cute it was, or get angry and start yelling because Naruto was not listening to her. She settled for an odd mixture of the first two. Come on, get up Naruto-kun, she called out after thinking about how adorable the child was and snickering at the thought that a pillow would block out her voice. It was a stupid idea since she was inside of him, after all. Naruto-kun, you need to get up, we have a long day ahead of us. When her calls didn't work, Akane began to get angry and shouted, get your ass out of bed Naruto. Gah! Naruto shouted as he jumped right out of bed, or tried to before he got tangled in his sheets, fell off the bed, and landed on his head when he hit the floor. Ow! He muttered, sitting up and rubbed the back of his head. He looked around and blinked before squinting his eyes. I wonder who woke me up. That would be me, Akane snickered in his mind. So it wasn't a dream. Naruto thought as he rubbed his eyes tiredly. No, it wasn't. Oh. Akane snickered again. Come on kid, get up and get some breakfast, your training begins today. Training. Naruto shouted as he jumped up in excitement. Unfortunately, he was still tangled up in his bed sheets and fell down again, where he began to squirm along the floor in an attempt to get himself free. Ha 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 ha, loud laughing came from his mind as Akane watched the boy struggle with his best sheets. It's not funny, Naruto pouted as he finally got free. It so is funny. Now get up and get some breakfast, you'll need your energy for your training. At the words training, all thoughts on his previous mishap was forgotten as Naruto raced out of his room and into the living room/kitchen of his apartment. He had gotten this apartment from Ajisen a year ago, after he had been kicked out and the old Hokage had found him huddled up in an alley using paper as a blanket. The apartment was, in a word, awful. The paint was chipped and faded, all of the furniture was used and beaten, the floors creaked, the windows were cracked, and on the outside walls near entrance were the words, Die Demon, painted in red. It had not always been like this. In fact the place had been fairly new when the Hokage had given it to him. But after several break-ins and raids the furniture and walls had been destroyed and Naruto had been forced to find items like microwaves in the dumpsters. Not that this bothered the little blonde anymore, it might have before. In fact just yesterday before the mob had come for him he had been crying about how people kept ruining everything he got. But today was a new day, he had someone who promised to help him, and that made everything seem insignificant in comparison. Naruto walked up to the pantry and grabbed a stool before opening it so that he could get to the top shelves where he hid his foodstuffs behind his rotten goods. He had learned a long time ago that people would raid his food if they found anything, so he had grabbed a lot of the rotten-smelling food, some of the only things that he could afford thanks to all the extra money he had to pay, taxes the grocers called them, and hid some of the other things he could buy that was actually edible behind it. He pushed the cabbages and other nearly a year out-of-date food to the side to reveal his stock of food. Said stock consisted of ramen and more ramen, all of it in a variety of different flavors, though miso seemed to be the most prominent available. As Naruto began to cook his ramen, filling the cup with water and turning on the microwave for the 3 minutes it took to cook, Akane decided to voice her question. Is that all you have? She asked in shock. She had only gone through some of his life since she had woken up yesterday during his beating, not wanting to violate his privacy any more than she had to in order to gain a better understanding of his life. As such she had not gone into things like if he was getting enough nutrients, and it hadn't seemed as important when he was getting beaten. Yeah, why? Asked Naruto as he began to happily slurp up his ramen. Oh, no reason, just curious, Akane replied lightly, while trying to get a better grasp of the situation. Naruto-kun, why do you have rotten, out-of-date food in your pantry? Because it was the only thing the stores would sell me, Naruto shrugged as he finished his ramen. He looked over at the pantry again, tempted to get another but stopped himself. He didn't have much money and couldn't afford to buy more. Something about taxation for letting demons like me live here. Those arrogant, filthy monkeys. Akane raged mentally, cutting off her thoughts from her host as she began to pace within her cell. How could they do this to an innocent child? And they call me a demon. A part of her felt guilty since some of this was her fault, but she was determined to make amends for her mistake. More importantly, Naruto did not seem to hold a grudge on her, and that meant more to her than the young blonde would likely ever know. She shook her head as she came up with a plan of action. She would start training him first, then she would work on getting him something healthy to eat. If you're finished eating, I want you to head out into the forest, she told her container. Why? Asked Naruto, not that he had a problem with the request, he loved the forest and the solitude it offered. He was just curious. So I can begin your training away from prying eyes. If people discovered you getting stronger they may try to kill you. She didn't want to sound so harsh, but she needed to get her point across and there was no sense in beating around the bush. Naruto gulped. "'Kay, I'll head out right now." Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. Soon, the young blonde found himself surrounded by trees as he walked through the forest around Konoha. He was not quite sure how far he had gone, but he knew it was likely farther than he had ever gone before. Within his mind Kyubi was, with his permission, extending her senses out of the seal so she could ensure that no one was around. "Okay, I think this is far enough Naruto-kun," she said. "Now sit down and we'll begin your training." Naruto did as told, finding a nice tree to sit against. "So what am I going to be doing Akane-kan?" "You will be learning the first and one of the most important steps for any ninja," she told him, "accessing your chakra." "What's chakra?" he asked, scratching his head in confusion. "Not chakra, Naruto-kun, chakra," Kyubi corrected. Chakra, chakura, is essential to even the most basic jutsu, mystical arts a ninja will utilize in battle. It is a mixture of the physical energy, shintai energy, that is present in every cell of the body and the spiritual energy, seishin energy, which is gained from exercise and experience. Once mixed, it can be channeled through the chakra circulatory system. Think of it as a system much like your bloodstream, to any of the 361 chakra points called tenketsu in the body. Through various methods, the most common of which for you humans are hand seals, the chakra can then be manipulated to create an effect that would not be possible otherwise, such as walking on water, exhaling fire, or creating illusions. By mixing different ratios of the two energies, new types of chakra can be formed. The most common product is elemental chakra, which is used to perform elemental jutsu. Most ninja have a natural affinity to one type of chakra, but they have the capacity to create elemental chakra apart from their own affinity. There are 6 basic types, each stronger and weaker to another. 5 have been shown so far, but their relations, weaknesses, and strengths to each other are all explored, the 6th dealing with yin and yang and the balance of mental and physical energies. In addition to these 6 elements, certain Kekkei Genkai can mix elemental chakra to form new elements. For example, it would be possible to mix water and wind into ice. While many ninja can use more than one type of chakra, very few are able to use them simultaneously. Naruto listened to Akane's explanation of what chakra was. When she had finished he scratched the back of his head, and were the red-haired woman out of the seal, she would have seen the look of dumb confusion on his face. "Right, so what is chakra again?" he asked in a sheepish voice. Akane face-faulted at his words. Pushing herself into a sitting position she pinched the bridge of her nose. "You don't know what his chakra is, do you?" "No," Naruto said, his mental voice sounding like a sad whisper. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to dissa. Let you down." Akane realized what was going on, that he was afraid she wouldn't continue training him, and quickly made out to rectify his thoughts. "Oh no, don't worry about it, I forgot that you're a little young to understand something that complex. You likely haven't even started the academy yet, huh?" Naruto shook his head. Ajisen says that I can't start until I'm 6, that's next year. Right, so it's not your fault you can't understand that, Akane frowned. How could she best to explain chakra to a 5-year? Naruto-kun, what's your favorite food? She asked as an idea came to her. Ramen, his excited shout echoed throughout his mindscape. Right, I should have figured that, Akane snickered a bit, with how it seemed to be the only thing he ate. It wasn't surprising. Okay, think of it like this, chakra is an energy that people use to do superhuman feats. Now I want you to think of chakra as ramen. Ramen. Focus kid, Akane admonished lightly, getting an embarrassed chuckle out of the blonde. Now your ramen is made of 2 things, the noodles and the broth. What about the toppings? Asked Naruto, interrupting Akane's lecture. The topics come later, she said, trying to keep his attention focused on her lecture. Now don't interrupt me anymore. The noodles would be your physical energy, while the broth is your spiritual energy. By combining the 2 you get ramen in the same way that combining your physical and spiritual energy gets chakra. And by doing that I can do all those cool things I saw ninjas doing, asked Naruto excitedly. Like jumping really high, and walking along walls. It can do much more than that, Naruto-kun, Akane giggled, but we'll get more into what you can do later. First, I need to teach you how to access your chakra. Oh. Naruto looked kind of disappointed for a moment, though it was gone a second later. How do I access my chakra? First, I want you to sit in a cross-legged position with your back straight and pressed against the tree. Naruto blinked a few times at what he felt was an odd request but did as told. Now, close your eyes and bring your hands together. Her voice began to gain a hypnotic quality that made it impossible for Naruto to do anything but what she told him. Make a cross using the middle and ring fingers. Now take deep, slow breaths and imagine a small ball of warmth in the pit of your stomach. When you feel it, let me know and describe what it is that you're feeling. Naruto did as told as he sat there, the ring and middle fingers of his hands forming a cross in front of him and his eyes closed. He tried to imagine the ball of warmth in his stomach, tried to feel it. However, after several hours with no success, Naruto gave a disappointed sigh. I can't feel anything. Akane winced at the despondent tone in his voice and sought to reassure him. Don't worry about it, Naruto-kun, it takes time for people to learn how to access their chakra. Just be patient and you'll get there. Thanks Akane-kan, Naruto said. Even though she couldn't see his face, Akane could almost feel the smile in his words and it warmed her heart in ways she had not felt before. You're welcome. Naruto's stomach erupted into a growl, interrupting the tender moment between student and teacher. I guess, I'm hungry, the blonde rubbed his stomach absently. Akane rolled her eyes but smiled as well. I can hear a stream nearby, I want you to go there and catch some fish. Why do you want me to do that? Asked Naruto, confused by the request. So you can eat them, of course, Akane replied absently, unable to see the horrified look on Naruto's face. But why would I want to eat a fish? They're alive. Well, yes, they are, Akane blinked in confusion at the horrified tone in his voice. But they won't be once you kill them. Kill them! Naruto shouted, his voice thundering across the mindscape, causing Akane to wince. Why would you want me to kill some helpless animal? So you can eat them, of course. But I don't want to eat some helpless animal. That's really mean. I love animals. Akane actually blinked several minutes before snorting, and people thought this child was a demon. Naruto-kun, she said as gently as possible, it wouldn't do for her to get upset at his odd morals, especially since he likely didn't understand. This is the way the world works, it is natural. All animals are eaten by other animals. Insects eat grass and other plants, they in turn are eaten by lizards, fish and bats, while they in turn are eaten by larger animals. You are just doing as nature intended. So it's not bad, questioned the blonde. No, it's not bad at all, in fact, without other animals eating the smaller ones the balance of the world become upset. It was an exaggeration. Naruto's eating of animals would have no bearing on the natural community. But it was better to tell a small lie so he would eat something healthy, rather than going to get some ramen back home. Well, I guess if it's natural, then it's okay. Yes, perfectly okay. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf ARG. You stupid fish. Naruto shouted as he tried to catch one of the many fish that were swimming in the stream he was standing in. So far he was having no luck, as the fish would seem to know what he was doing and just swim away from his hands. Come here you little, he growled, trying to grab another fish. Splash, only to slip on a particularly slippery rock and fall into the water, scaring off the fish he was near. Arg! Why can't I catch any? Shouted Naruto in frustration. Akane watched the boy fail to catch anything with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. Naruto-kun, she said as said blonde stood back up, grumbling a little about his clothes being soaked. Close your eyes. Why? Just do it, she said. Okay, Naruto closed his eyes. I want you to stay absolutely still. She once again modulated her voice into that hypnotic quality it had been when she had been helping him try to gain access to his chakra. I want you to feel the current of the water, which way it's going and how fast it's moving. Then, try to feel the fish as they swim against the current. Naruto did as told. He was perfectly still as he felt the water moving around him in the direction he was facing. At least most of it was. He could feel small areas where it felt like the water was moving in the opposite direction. Those are the fish, Akane informed the boy as to what those small movements were. I want you to concentrate on the one that is swimming just to your left, feel its movements. On the count of 3, I want to swipe your hand across the water, just in front of the direction that fish is moving. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Splash! Naruto opened his eyes as he felt his hand hit something, and was just in time to see the fish he had been focusing on hit his hand and fly out of the water and onto the land over by his left. Yada! I did it, shouted Naruto excitedly. Very good Naruto-kun, Akane congratulated, now do that 3 more times and I think we'll be good. 3 more splashes later and Naruto was carrying 4 fish, using his shirt as a makeshift net. He walked some distance away and on Akane's orders gathered a dozen medium-sized rocks and arranged them in a circle, then grabbed dry leaves and twigs and placed them in the center. Okay, now place your finger in the center of the leaves. Naruto did as told, and felt an odd, warm sensation move up through his arm, then his finger. Suddenly the leaves and twigs ignited in a spark. Naruto jumped back in shock. What the hell? Relax, Kit, Kyubi snickered a little bit. I just started the fire for you. You did that? Asked Naruto, his voice holding an odd tone to it. Yes, Kyubi sounded decidedly smug, though Naruto didn't even notice. So cool, will I learn to do that? Maybe, it depends on your elemental affinity. Elephant what? Elemental affinity, it's something you'll learn of when you're older. Oh, Naruto was tempted to ask Akane to teach him about elements now, but didn't want to upset the first person who really talked to him and thus kept his mouth shut. Now, grab those larger stick I made you get and stick the fish on them so they can cook, Akane said. After you finish eating we'll work on accessing your chakra again. Okay, Naruto replied. He was feeling a little queasy about cooking something that was alive at one point, but didn't want to argue and thus did as he was told. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. By the end of the day a tired Naruto dragged himself back into his room. He had spent several more hours trying to access his chakra with no success. That had him feeling down, but Akane assured him it would likely be a month or so before he would be able to gain access to this power that would allow him to do awesome things. It made him feel a little better, to know that she wasn't disappointed in him. He crawled onto the bed and into his covers, burying his head inside of his pillow. Who knew sitting around doing nothing more than searching for your inner energy could be so exhausting? Before he could go to sleep a thought crossed his mind, hey, Akane-kan. Yes. how do I get back to the place you're at? Akane's face gained a confused expression. Why do you want to know? I was hoping to visit you, he said, a small, embarrassed blush on his face. Oh, even though he seemed to forgive her for what she had done to him, Akane had not expected him to actually want to spend some time with her again. It was oddly comforting to know she was wrong. Well, to go back into your mind, all you have to do is close your eyes and think about coming back here. Okay, thanks. With that, Naruto went to sleep. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. He opened his eyes again. It wasn't to the sight of his cracked ceiling, but to the glowing pipes of the sewer that Akane had called his mind. He stood up and wondered how long he had been lying there. It must have been a long time since he didn't feel in the least bit tired. Shrugging the thoughts that he considered irrelevant off, he walked forward and made his way to the cage that housed Akane. Akane-kan, he called out as he stepped in through the bars. He looked around before hearing the sound of footsteps. Naruto-kun, asked Akane curiously as she stepped forward and into the odd light that seemed to surround Naruto so he could see her. What are you doing here? She tilted her head. Didn't you go to sleep already? I already did sleep, said Naruto, wondering what she was talking about. He didn't remember coming back here, but since he wasn't tired he had to have already slept. Right? Akane looked at him oddly for a second before realizing he likely didn't even know that he had just come into the seal immediately after asking his question. He probably didn't even realize that they were inside of his mind and most likely thought that he had teleported to some distant land. The thought was amusing enough to make her smile. So what are you doing here? She asked, sitting down and splaying her tails. Naruto hesitated for a moment before sitting down next to her. I was just wondering, if you would tell me about yourself. About myself? You want to know about me? Asked Akane, surprised once again by this strange boy. Yeah, I mean, all I've ever heard about you was how you were this evil demon who attacked our village. Akane's shoulders slumped in depression at that, but Naruto's next words made her shocked. But that can't be right. I mean, you've been so nice to me, and you're smart, and really pretty. He looked at her with those ridiculously large and innocent eyes. All the red-haired vixen could do was bite her lower lip to keep herself from glomping the boy. There's just no way you can be evil like everyone else says, he concluded. Damn, how this boy could make her, the most powerful bijou on earth, tear up like this was beyond her. She tried to wipe them away before her young companion could notice, but was apparently not quick enough as Naruto saw the tears and his eyes widened and took them in the wrong context. Oh my God! I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry. I'm really, his words were muffled when Akane covered his mouth with one of her hands. She smiled at him as she wiped her eyes with the other hand. These are tears of happiness, Naruto-kun, they're good tears, she reassured him. So I didn't make you sad? Asked Naruto. He really didn't want what might possibly be his first friend to get sad. No, you didn't make me sad, she said, scooping him into her arms. She set him down in her lap and pressed the back of his head into her bosom. Had he been anything other than an innocent child, the position would have likely sent him rocketing with geysers of blood shooting out of his nose. As it was, all Naruto could think of was how comfortable this position was as he snuggled himself deeper in between her breasts. Akane set her head on top of his and asked, "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Naruto told her, "I want to know everything about you." Akane giggled at the childish enthusiasm in his voice. Well, he was a child, so it was to be expected. "Very well," she said, "I can't tell you everything there is to know about me. That would take several years, possibly decades." Naruto pouted and Akane giggled again, "But I think I can tell you a story about some of my travels." "What kind of story?" asked the excited blonde. "Well," Akane smiled, "why don't I tell you about a friend I had many, thousands of years ago named the Inu no Taisho and his 2 sons. "Naruto-kun," came the sing-song voice of Akane. I'm up, Naruto grumbled out loud, his sleep-addled brain making him forget to speak within his mind. He sat up slowly and yawned, stretching his arms above his head while he smacked his lips to dry and moisten them. For a moment he just sat there, not doing anything until he got a small mental prod from Akane telling him to get up. Getting out of bed, he began his daily routine. It had been a month since he had met Akane and started working on accessing his chakra, and since then the young Uzumaki had fallen into a routine of wake up, eat ramen, meditate in the forest, eat whatever he managed to catch, meditate again, eat some more, then go home and enter his mindscape where he would talk to Akane until he fell asleep in her arms. While the training was good, that last part of the day was the best, as far as he was concerned. "So what are we doing today?" asked Naruto as he began slurping up his morning ramen. He had just managed to gain access to his chakra yesterday, which had been really exciting for the blonde and had him jumping up and down for the rest of the afternoon. It had taken Akane nearly 3 hours to get him to calm down, not that she was much better, as she had been just as excited for the blonde. "Today we'll begin the next stage of your training," Akane told him. "Go to our usual spot in the forest and we'll get started." Asu. When Naruto finished with his meal, he tossed the empty cup and used chopsticks into an overflowing trash can. Akane made a mental note to make him clean his house when he got home as the blonde stepped out and closed the door behind him. He took off without locking it. There was no need since he had nothing of value anymore, and it wasn't like it ever stopped people from breaking in anyways. He ran down the street, completely ignoring the scowls and angered glares that were sent his way. Now that he had someone who cared about him, the glares sent to him by the villagers were less than meaningless. Soon enough Naruto was running through the trees and stopped in the clearing he had been using. "Okay, so what now?" "Now we'll begin the second step, molding and controlling your chakra," Akane commented as Naruto sat down in his usual spot as he listened to the demoness talk. Molding chakra involves the extraction of energies from both the body's cells and the mind's consciousness, then mixing them together within the individual. The amount of each energy will differ based on the type of technique the ninja wishes to execute. In other words, a ninja could create too much or too little chakra for a given jutsu, resulting in the chakra being used inefficiently. In addition, even if a ninja is able to mold the correct amount of chakra, if they cannot manipulate the chakra properly, the desired jutsu will not be as effective or will not execute at all. Wasting energy will also create weaknesses like early exhaustion, which would hinder the ninja's capacity to fight long-term battles. General training methods for improving one's molding and manipulation of chakra are the leaf concentration, tree climbing, and water walking exercises, at least for humans. Yeah. Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Right. Akane sighed, "Needs to be simpler." "Okay," she clapped her hands together, "why don't we just start with a chakra control exercise and I'll go into more detail behind the mechanics and theories of chakra later. Naruto-kun, I want you to grab a leaf and stick it on to your forehead, channel your chakra to your head to hold the leaf there." Naruto didn't even question her as he picked up a leaf from the ground and put it to his head. He began channeling chakra to that spot, then removed his hand. He was rather surprised when instead of sticking to him, the leaf shot off his head, completely torn to shreds. "What happened?" he asked. "You used too much chakra," Kane told him. "If you use too much chakra the leaf will shoot off, too little and it won't stick. Of course he has so much it actually ripped the leaf to pieces, this is going to take some effort." She didn't mention that out loud as she continued, "You need to find the correct amount of chakra to use in order to make the leaf stick." "Okay, I think I understand," Naruto said. He grabbed another leaf and got to work. Sticking a leaf to his forehead proved to be a lot harder than it sounded. Usually he found it flying off his forehead with enough force that the leaf would actually get torn. It took the entirety of his 3-hour period before lunch to make any progress at all, progress being that now his leaf only flew about a foot away, rather than getting torn to shred from the force of getting shot off his head. It was a little disappointing that he couldn't complete the exercise by the time he finished, but Akane didn't let him wallow in what he deemed as a failure. "That was an excellent job Naruto-kun," she said to him. "This exercise is actually harder for you than most, because you have so much more chakra than most people. The fact that you're starting at such a young age is also a factor to consider. So because I have more chakra, it's harder to control," asked Naruto as he ate the fish he had caught along with some of the wild berries that Akane had told him were edible. Yes, the more chakra you have the more difficult it is to control it, she paused. I believe that's why humans start teaching children to mold chakra at a young age. Demons do the same thing with their young, especially considering Yuki is harder to control than chakra. Why is that? Because Yuki is many times more potent and powerful than its human equivalent, Yuki from even the weakest demon is about 3 times more powerful than chakra. What about you? How much stronger is your Yuki? Akane smiled as she answered, oh, about 100 times more powerful. Naruto's eyes widened, you must be really strong. Of course, Akane said, and Naruto got a mental image of the redhead flipping her hair over her shoulder and smirking. I am the most powerful bijou in existence after all. Now, finish eating so we can get started on your training. Naruto nodded, even though Akane could not see it, and scarfed down the rest of his food before standing up. So am I going to be doing the leaf-sticking exercise again? He asked. No, you're going to be training your body now, Akane said. Another key to gaining strength is your physical prowess, so I want you to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 pull-ups, 200 crunches, and then you're going to run around the forest at full speed until I say stop. Naruto's eyes widened to epic proportion as she told him what he would be doing, WHAAT. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf, WHAAT. The scream echoed all throughout Konoha, causing many people to pause and shiver at the fear and at the sheer terror the voice held. Sarutobi had stopped reading his beloved Ika Ika Paradise and looked out of the window as the shout came. He shivered. Why do I have this feeling that someone close to me is being tortured? Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. Don't complain, Naruto-kun, Akane admonished as Naruto began blubbering about the exercises being too much. If you want to be strong, you need to do as I say. But, fine, the young blonde child's shoulders seemed to drop. Now, don't be all down, this really will help you, the red-haired vixen told her charge, I just want you to reach your goals. I know. Thank you, Akane-kan. You're welcome. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. Naruto's new training regimen soon began. Every morning after breakfast he would begin practicing chakra control exercises. It took nearly a month for him to accomplish the leaf concentration exercise, or sticking a leaf to your forehead. When that was accomplished, Akane had him move on. The next step was tree climbing. This step was a lot harder than leaf concentration. It required him to channel chakra to the bottom of his feet and walk up the surface of a tree. Too much and he was blasted off, and too little he would fall off. It didn't sound that hard in theory, but in practice it was much more difficult. The thing about tree climbing was that it wasn't just about channeling the correct amount of chakra to his feet, it required more than just that. Every time he wanted to take a step, he actually had to cut the chakra to that foot, otherwise, it would simply stay stuck to the tree when he tried to pull it off. This meant Naruto had to not only find the correct amount of chakra to channel, but had to time when he would dispel the chakra on his feet to move up or down the tree. Akane had him accomplish this by laying on his back and pressing his feet against the side of a tree. He would then channel his chakra and attempted to walk up slowly. She would do what she could to coach him, giving helpful tips like telling him to clear your mind and focus only on the feel of his chakra and climbing up the tree, as well as giving him encouragement. Like his other exercise, this one required had taken a month for him to accomplish. Now he was attempting to walk on water. If he had thought tree climbing was hard, then this was just ridiculous. To do this exercise, the user had to be emitting a constant stream of chakra from the bottom of their feet and using the repellent force, walk across the water's surface. This technique was far more difficult to master than the tree climbing exercise, because the amount of chakra that needed to be emitted changed constantly, meaning he had to monitor the amount he was expelling all the time. Splash! Wah! Keep trying, Kit. Akane said, snickering at her container's plight as he fell in for the 6th time this day. Brr, I hate this so much, Naruto said as he climbed out of the water, shivering as a wind blew across his cold, wet skin. He stood there for nearly a minute, shivering before he decided to try again. Okay, let's do this again. The young blonde began channeling chakra to the bottom of his feet, placing his left foot on the water he leaned on. His foot dipped a little but he quickly expelled more chakra to compensate. When he felt ready he placed his other foot on the water, he shook a little as his feet kept dipping in and out of the moving, liquid surface and he did his best to keep himself from falling. When he was ready, he began to move 1 step, 2 steps, 3, 4. Hey! Naruto smiled, I think I'm getting the hang of this. Splash! Wah! Mhem ha 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 ha. Akane began laughing hysterically as the blonde once again fell in. Were anyone else inside the seal they would have seen the crimson-haired demoness rolling around on the floor laughing as she held her gut, and with tears of mirth streaming down her face. Who knew watching Naruto train would be so entertaining? It's not funny. Naruto scowled, as he climbed back out. It is too funny. Akane shot back even as she tried to regain her breath from all the laughing she did. I only wish I could see the look on your face, ha ha ha. Why is this so hard? Asked Naruto in a complaining whine. Well, you can't expect it to be easy, Akane quipped as she got her laughing under control. This is the hardest exercise humans have, at least I think it is. I'm pretty sure they don't go into any of the other exercises. So you can't expect to just get it right away. But it's been 2 months. Naruto whined, the others only took me 1 month. Which just goes to show you that this exercise is much harder than the other ones, Akane said. Now, let me dry you off then you can go and get some food. Naruto felt his entire body relax as Kyuubi's Yuki entered his system. His skin began to heat and steam, drying off as the natural heat from the vixen's Yuki warmed it. I love the feel of your Yuki, Naruto said with a content sigh. His eyes were closed so he could not see the light red haze of Akane's Yuki as it flooded through his coils and made its way out of the pores of his skin. It feels almost as good as when you hold me. What? Asked Akane, blushing at his innocent words. He had been making innocent statements like that ever since they met. For some reason they never failed to make her entire face feel like it was on fire. She was confused as to why those words from Naruto always seemed to affect her so. No matter how hard she thought about it, she had been unable to find the answer. Maybe her biological clock was finally ticking. She just hoped Nibby never found out or that damn Hellcat would never let her hear the end of it. She shook her head, now wasn't the time to figure out what it was about this boy that affected her so. Go and catch something to eat Naruto-kun, afterwards begin your physical training. Yes, Akane-kan. Story of the 10-tailed wolf. Sarutobi slowly blew smoke from his pipe as he looked out at the village. The paperwork was done, his secretary had none left to bring him, he had no ninja bothering and the council had been quiet since Naruto's birthday. Days like this, where he could just relax were rare and he was taking full advantage of that fact by smoking his favorite pipe. Ah! This is the life. Just as he had those thoughts the door slammed open and in walked Naruto Uzumaki, yelling out in a loud voice, "Oh Ajisen." Looks like he spoke too soon. Ah, Naruto-kun, Sarutobi smiled, even if the boy had ruined the peace and quiet he had been enjoying, the young blonde always brought a smile to his face. What can I do for you? You do know that it's not time for me to take you out to ramen for another 2 days, right? Ever since Sarutobi had found the little blonde on his own, hiding from the weather under several sheets of newspaper in an alley, he had taken it upon himself to ensure Naruto got at least one good meal when he could. Sarutobi often wished he could do more for the young bundle of energy, but unfortunately his job as Hokage often kept him too busy to do more than spend once a month with Naruto. Shaking the thoughts off, he focused his attention on said blonde. That's okay, Naruto said as he sat down on the chair in front of the Hokage's desk, swinging his legs back and forth in a childish manner as they couldn't reach the floor. I'm actually here to ask for something else. Oh. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow in mild curiosity. And what do you need from me? Well, Naruto gave a sheepish grin and scratched the back of his head. I was wondering if I could use your library to look up cool ninja techniques. Ninja techniques? Sarutobi looked both startled and amused. Naruto-kun, you don't start the academy for another 8 months, you'll learn all the ninja techniques then. I know, but I wanted to get a head start, said Naruto, that way I can show everyone how awesome I am. Sarutobi chuckled a bit, the boy was enthusiastic at least. I apologize Naruto-kun, but the Hokage library is restricted to only myself and those ninja who have my permission to enter. You are not a ninja so there isn't much I could do. I can't even take a peek, asked Naruto, with wide, innocent eyes that threatened to break Sarutobi's will. I'm sorry, Sarutobi said, doing his best not to look into the blonde's eyes. But it wouldn't be fair to the other students. However, if you really wish to get a head start you could always check out some of the books they have at the library. I believe they have a few books on ninja basics there. They won't let me enter, Naruto whispered in a hurt tone. It sounded like someone had kicked his puppy and was enough to make Sarutobi flinch. When the blonde looked again they were all watery and had tears leaking out of the corner of his eyes. The lady there kicked me out before I could even enter. She said demons don't deserve to learn. Sarutobi felt his will crumble, even as his anger at hearing what someone told the young blonde skyrocketed. How could anyone say something like that to a child? Didn't they know how impressionable young children were at Naruto's age? If you tell a child he's a demon enough times then he may believe, and if that happened Naruto would become the very thing this village despised and feared. It would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I suppose it would be alright if I let you take a look, Sarutobi admitted slowly. At least until I have a talk with the librarian. The way he said talk made it clear that he would be doing anything but talking. He stood up from his chair and walked around the table, holding his hand out to Naruto who took it immediately. They walked out of the office and Sarutobi stopped to look at his secretary. I want you to contact Ibiki, tell him he's to be at my office in 1 hour. Yes, Hokage-sama, the young brunette said. Sarutobi had hired her for the simple fact that she was one of the few people who did not seem to hate Naruto, or at the very least, she hid it well and didn't let it interfere with her work. Come along Naruto-kun, Sarutobi said as they began walking down the hall. Kit, that was some very nice acting back there, Akane said, impressed with how well he managed to create tears on cue. You even had me fooled for a second. Thanks Akane-kan, Naruto said cheerfully, I aim to please. He and Sarutobi reached the end of the hall and went down several flights of stairs, through another hall and stopped in front of a set of large double doors. Sarutobi placed his hand on a seal on the left door and began channeling his chakra into the seal. It glowed a light blue for a moment before. There was a soft click and the door opened. Saruto led Naruto through the door and into the room. The Hokage library was not that large, not compared to the public library. That was because the Hokage library contained strictly ninja techniques, whereas the public one had a section for just about everything. Still it was very large, with nearly 24 rows of shelves filled with books and scrolls, 2 floors, several chairs and a table for reading. Now Naruto, Sarutobi started in a serious voice. There are a few stipulations to me letting you stay here. First, you can only read from the basic shinobi section, section 1. Weasel will be making sure that you do not read any of the scrolls and books in the other sections. Who's Weasel? Asked Naruto, tilting his head in curiosity. That would be me, said a voice behind Naruto. Gah! Naruto whirled around and found himself staring into someone wearing the traditional ANBU uniform, which consisted of black and gray armor, metal arm guards and gloves, ninja sandals with spikes for traveling into mountainous regions, 3 ninja pouches on his back waist and a signature spiral tattoo on his left shoulder. He had a porcelain mask in the likeness of a weasel and a standard black ninjato strapped to his back. I apologize, I did not mean to startle you, the masked ninja, who could only be Weasel stated. It was hard to tell with the mask muffling the voice, and said voice being slightly monotone, but he sounded amused. Naruto huffed as he crossed his arms and gave the weasel-masked Umbu a petulant glare, just don't do it again. Sarutobi chuckled and ruffled Naruto's hair, now then, Weasel will make sure that you only read what I allow you. Also, be careful not to damage any of the scrolls you handle, most of these are originals and therefore delicate. I am putting a lot of trust in you Naruto-kun, don't let me down. Don't you worry about a thing Ajisen. Naruto grinned as he gave a thumbs up, unknowingly giving the nice guy pose. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf YOSH. My youth detector has gone off, shouted a man with a bowl cut, large eyebrows and the most hideous green leotard-like spandex anyone had ever laid eyes on. Everyone around this man suddenly jumped in startlement as he enthusiastically pumped a fist in the air. Whoever this youthful person is has inspired me. I must fan my own flames of youth by challenging my hip, eternal rival Kakashi. With that said the man took off, leaving nothing but a cloud of dust in his likeness behind. The people who watched him shivered in fear as a shout of "Wyouyuth" could be heard in the distance. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. Over at a memorial that was made to honor those of Konoha who died in battle, in one of the many training grounds of Konoha, Kakashi Hatake shivered. Why do I have this intense urge to kill spiky-headed blondes? Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. Sarutobi grimaced as he saw the pose Naruto had taken. He hoped that Madogai never got his hands on the impressionable child. The horrors that would come of such a meeting were too terrible to imagine. Then I will leave you to it. Meanwhile, I am going to go speak with a subordinate of mine and have him talk to the librarian you were telling me about. He did his best to shake thoughts of a Naruto wearing green spandex with a bowl-shaped haircut and large eyebrows out of his mind. Okay. I'll just get started on learning awesome ninja powers, the next time you see me I'll be ready to take that hat. Naruto shouted enthusiastically. Sarutobi chuckled, I'm sure you will. He said, not too concerned, after all, how much could a child like Naruto really learn in the few days it would take for him to straighten out the library? He nodded to Weasel who nodded back and left. Akane sighed, not quite what I had hoped but at least he gave you access to the library, we should be able to learn more about ninja techniques than we can at the academy, even with the restrictions. Naruto-kun, go grab a book on shinobi basics. Asu. Naruto ran to the section Sarutobi had pointed out and immediately began scanning the titles of the books and scrolls in that particular area. It was only then that Naruto realized they had another problem. A Akane-kan? Yes. I can't. Akane blinked curiously as Naruto's voice was too soft for her to hear, like a whisper across the mindscape. What it is Naruto-kun? She asked. I can't read, he mumbled, feeling ashamed of himself. What? I can't read. But didn't she stopped herself from speaking any further and nearly kicked herself. Of course that hateful bitch of a matron that had kicked him out of the orphanage hadn't taught him how to read. Why she even thought that he might be able to despite this was beyond her. She knew that everyone hated Naruto enough that they would do all in their power to block him from learning. Knowledge is power after all, and they wouldn't want the demon to gain any of that. Kyubi felt a growl escape her throat as the desire to tear out the matron's throat nearly overwhelmed her. But she forced the emotion into the back of her mind, it wouldn't help right now. She needed to help Naruto. Naruto-kun, she said softly, interrupting the boy who had begun to softly cry at his lack of ability. I want you to allow me to take control of your body. I can memorize all of the scrolls here and manifest them in the mindscape, then I'll teach you to read. Okay. Naruto sniffed as he wiped his eyes, thank you. Don't mention it, Akane smiled before she exerted her will through the seal, without Naruto's express permission what she was about to do would be impossible. The seal that held her was stronger than any she had ever seen, held together by the powers of the Shinigami, the avatar of death himself. Even with Naruto's permission this would be a tad difficult without alerting the ANBU to any change in Naruto's chakra. Slowly, she seeped her chakra through the seal and established hold of Naruto's own chakra, exerting more will over it to bring it under her control. Naruto, whose head had been bowed down, lifted it up to reveal red eyes with black slits. Grabbing the first scroll she saw, Akane began to read over it. Thanks to what she could do things like read a lot faster than any human could, and she had eidetic memory, so she never forgot what she read. Going through the first book as quickly as possible, she soon went on to the next. All the books she read only had the standard information in them: what a ninja was, basic skills in stealth, tracking, tai, nin, and genjutsu, chakra and hand seals, along with many other subjects that academy students were expected to know. There were a few jutsu that she got, but they were fairly weak and wouldn't be as useful as what she had hoped to find. Other books held content she already knew herself, like chakra. She had more knowledge on that subject than any scroll a human could write ever would. But others she didn't know and was quick to absorb the contents of those scrolls for later use. She didn't get as much as she had hoped out of the scrolls, but it was better than nothing. Over by the door, Weasel watched as Naruto ran through the books faster than an Akamichi ate food with an amused chuckle. The kid was definitely interesting, though what he hoped to accomplish by looking through a bunch of books without reading their contents was beyond him. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. Later that night, Naruto was back in Akane's laps within the seal. She had secured her hands firmly around his waist as she pulled him to her and set her hands on his lap. "Okay, Naruto-kun." Akane held out her hands and materialized a book within them. This one was not one of the ninja books, but a basic book with the human alphabet and some words and sentences on it. It was a book that held a compendium of knowledge that Akane had on the human language, and would be what she used to teach the young blonde how to read with. "We're going to start by learning the alphabet. Now, Japanese is an agglutinative language and Amaratined language. It has a relatively small sound inventory, and a lexically significant pitch accent system. It is distinguished by a complex system of honorifics, with verb forms and particular vocabulary to indicate the relative status of the speaker, the listener, and persons mentioned in conversation. Japanese vowels are pure." Noticing the look on Naruto's face that let Akane know he had no clue what she was talking about, she decided to go a different route. "Why don't we start with the alphabet?" Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. The days wore on and became weeks, and the weeks became months as Akane continued helping Naruto. Teaching him to read was not all that hard. He could already talk, so it was easier than teaching someone who was younger than him. All in all, it only took 2 weeks within the seal before the young blonde was capable of reading fluently. Afterwards, Akane had Naruto add in learning one of the jutsu she had found in the Hokage library with his normal routine. Sometimes it would take only a day to learn one of the jutsu, and sometimes it would take a month. However, he learned all the ones that she had to offer. All except one. "ARG8, shouted Naruto as he looked at his half-dead clone. He couldn't understand it. Why could he learn every other jutsu, yet this one technique was giving him problems? "You stupid bunshin. Work, damn you." He tried to make the clone jutsu again, and again, and again, but no matter how many times he tried, he always ended up with the same half-dead clone. "Why can't I do this?" "Because you have too much chakra," supplied Akane, who had been watching in amusement for a while before deciding to take pity on him. "What? Too much chakra?" asked Naruto in a confused voice. "Yep, remember what I told you about the more chakra you have being harder to control? Yeah, you said that when someone had more chakra it was harder for them to use, and if they didn't have enough control they would. That's it. I was overloading the jutsu. Even using the smallest amount of chakra I possess is still used too much for this technique." "Excellent, Naruto-kun," Kyubi said, pleased to find that her host was finally retaining and even using the knowledge she had given him. "Yes, you're overloading this jutsu. The problem is, even if you have perfect chakra control, there is no way for you to learn this particular technique, since the lowest amount of chakra you can emit would still be too much for you to handle." "So what I do?" asked Naruto, still feeling a little frustrated. "I don't want to just give up." "And you won't," Kyubi assured him. "We just need to find another technique that's similar to this one, something that allows to the same thing, maybe something even better than this technique. After all, this clone is just an illusion, so you can't do much with it." "That would be awesome, but how are we going to find a jutsu that could replace the Bunshin? Asked Naruto. Ajisen won't let me into the Hokage library now that I can go into the public one, and I already read all of the books you memorized. We'll think of something, Kyubi said, confident that something would come up to help them with this problem. Something always came up sooner or later, all they would need was patience. Why don't you head home now, she suggested. I suppose that would be for the best. Naruto channeled chakra into his legs and was soon hopping through the trees, making it out of the forest in only half an hour despite the 10-mile difference. Naruto-kun, Kyubi said as Naruto was walking through the now abandoned streets of Konoha, someone is following you. Naruto stopped and stiffened, prepared to run if someone was attempting to kill again. So far he had been able to outrun and hide from any and all the mobs that might have formed recently, since no one would expect him to know tree climbing, and he was sure he could outrun whoever was following him. But he didn't really want to run, he had been doing that all his short life and he was sick of it. Whoever is stalking me, I suggest you show yourself before I shove my foot off in your ass. Naruto shouted. Akane's sweat dropped. Did you seriously just say something that stupid, really Naruto-kun? The kid may be getting better but whoever this person was using chakra, she could feel it, and that meant he was ninja. Naruto stood no chance against a ninja right now. Naruto ignored her in favor of the figure who had just jumped down from building. He had dark gray eyes, black hair that hung near his cheeks to frame his face and kept the rest of it in a ponytail at the back. His clothes consisted of a black shirt with a high collar that somewhat covered the lower half of his face, it had a large red fan on the back, and black pants with a weapons pouch strapped to his back. The fact that this man had jumped from the roof told Naruto that he was a shinobi, making the blonde tense. He knew that he wouldn't stand a chance against a ninja. The whiskered blonde was now cursing himself for being so stupid. He had only just started his training a little while ago and he was only 5 going on 6 years old. He had no chance in hell of defeating a trained ninja. Maybe he should have listened to Akane after all. Who the hell are you and what do you want? Asked Naruto with false bravado, preparing to run in case things got bad. I mean you no harm Naruto-san, the man said, and the 5-year-old blonde blinked as he recognized the voice. Weasel-san? Asked Naruto uncertainly. I'm pleased to see you remember me, Weasel said, giving the blonde a small smile. It looked decidedly odd considering his voice had somewhat of a monotone. However, my real name is Itachi, so you may call me that when I am not on duty. Itachi. Naruto tried to the name out before shrugging. So, what exactly do you want with me Itachi-san? Why are you following me? I was just heading home after a mission and saw you coming out of the forest, Itachi said. I guess I became curious and followed you. Again I apologize for startling you. Naruto slowly relaxed. After his last beating he could tell when people wanted to harm him, in large part due to Akane pumping his eyes and nose with her Yuki. The results of which gave him increased vision that allowed him to see in the dark, and made his nose nearly 10 times stronger than an Inuzuka's. He could literally sense the pheromones on people and Akane had taught him to recognize them and what they meant. For the most part, there were some things she hadn't taught him yet, like that honey smell he had caught wind of when he passed a house where odd-sounding shouts were coming from. When he asked her about that she had just said, I'll tell you when you're older, and left his curiosity unsatisfied. In that case, is there something I can help you with? Asked Naruto, feeling better now that he could tell this man meant him no harm. Itachi shook his head. I was just heading back to my own home when I saw you and decided to make sure you got home safely. Naruto blinked for a few seconds before shrugging, well okay, thanks I guess. You are welcome Naruto-san, Itachi said. Naruto looked at him for a few more seconds before he began his walk back to his apartment. Itachi watched as the young child of the two people he had respected the most in this world walked off, a thoughtful frown on his face. That whole conversation had been both surprising and interesting. Surprising because Naruto had been able to actually sense him, despite the fact that Itachi was one of the few Umbu whose stealth skills were good enough that only the best Inuzuka trackers or a Hyuga could find him. He hadn't been hiding or anything, but the fact that the blonde had good enough senses to find him was still impressive. And it was interesting because of how the young blonde had reacted when he showed himself. The way Naruto had tensed his muscles, a sign that he had been coiled and ready to act if Itachi had shown any sign of attacking. It was both depressing and impressive, depressing that a young child, and the hero of Konoha had gained self-preservation abilities like that. Yet impressive as well, since while it was disheartening it showed just how powerful the young boy could become, if he could get proper training that is. He might already be getting training from somewhere, Itachi mused, he was consciously channeling chakra into his legs. That he can access his chakra at such a young age. Itachi would have to watch Naruto more closely, maybe he would find some way to help him. He owed it to the boy's parents after all. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. Naruto-kun, come into the seal, I want to speak with you for a second, Akane said as Naruto finished his after-exercise stretches. Sure thing, Naruto said, shrugging off the odd request since she could talk to him without him entering the mindscape. Not that he would ever complain about being near the one person who had helped him more than the Hokage. He sat down under one of the trees and closed his eyes. He pictured himself entering the mindscape and willed it to happen. Story of the Ten-Tailed Wolf. Opening his eyes again, Naruto found himself standing just outside of the cage that held Akane. He looked at it for a moment with frown before moving through the bars, and walked over to where the red head was sitting. Akane-kan, he greeted as he sat down next to her. Akane smiled at him, Naruto-kun, now that you are going to be starting the academy in a few months we need to talk about your persona. My what? Naruto asked, blinking in confusion. What was she talking about? Your persona, how you act in public, she said, I've been thinking about it for a while now. With how the population of Konoha sees you, we need to hide your abilities and make sure they don't think you're a threat. Okay, that makes sense actually. Naruto thought about what the red-haired demoness was telling him. So, how do you think I should act? He asked, because honestly he had no real talent in subterfuge. Akane smiled, well. I was thinking of the best way to make you seem harmless, as well as get back at a few of the villagers. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, share and subscribe. This is Raven Sage signing off.